Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
Hello, I'm Jake Carter with Felix and Fingers Dueling Pianos, and I'm here with Tina Digman, who is from Food for the Soul Catering and Events. You are an event planner and a catering business. Your bio, you grew up in the food and beverage industry, and you were a general manager and training director for one of the largest restaurant chains in the US. You've helped with a bunch of grand openings, and you've managed all of the different parts of events, weddings, restaurants, everything that there has to do with people, and all the fun having that you could possibly ever have, it looks like, based on your bio. And then when you're not doing events, logistics, and all of that, you like to vacation and just leave vacation, I guess, where we already live. So, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything that you want to talk about your history and bio, what that massive restaurant chain was that is a secret?
Um, so I worked, I lived on Oahu for 9 years and I worked for Chili's. Started off just as a server at their first restaurant in Waikele and kind of grew through the ranks. And when I ended my career there, I had done so many wonderful and amazing things, opening restaurants and traveling and learning lots of great, wonderful things. And had an amazing mentor who really taught me about leadership and how to be and how not to be in life. So it was a great experience.
So, I know we talked about you do catering and events. I'm going to stick mostly to events today. We could potentially do another one on catering or chat about catering another time. Or you can just bring it up and just go rogue on the podcast. Either way works. But I'm going to try to ask you event-based
I'll try not
questions.
to go rogue on you.
Whatever works. It's all about you here. So, what are the current trends that you're seeing in events and weddings and all those things?
Well, I think, the trend here on Maui since the fires, I think that's most important to talk about because I think people think that we are closed and we're not. And we are ready for business. We're ready to host weddings and events. And we need you to come desperately. Our services help us to stay employed, that helps us to continue to support the community. So I think a big trend in Maui right now is just getting our business back. It's, across the board in this industry, people are struggling a bit right now. So we're just wanting to get the word out that we're open, we're here, we're ready to go, and we'd love to have you guys back to host you in any way that we can. I think trends for the new wedding season, one of them that I absolutely love is bows. Bows on your napkins, bows on your glasses, bows on your centerpieces. I mean, who doesn't love bows? One of my favorite things. But that's a big trend. Bright color is important. And I think that we're still seeing some micro weddings, smaller weddings, so people can really lavish their guests, but really be able to sit and enjoy their time with their group of people versus trying to mingle with 100, 150 guests.
Yeah, I have seen that as well, and I've also heard that from quite a few people is smaller weddings are kind of in right now, but in a more personal but kind of almost extravagant way where it's like making them cooler for the smaller amount of people, and being able to connect more with the people that actually come. So I definitely think I can verify that that is true, and I have seen that. So what are some things that you think that people should never do at their event or wedding?
Hmm. Things that you should never do. I would say never. I'm going to kind of go on to the food end because it does tie with the overall. Never sacrifice food and beverage for your guests, especially when planning a destination wedding. I think
Yeah.
coming to Maui, people spend thousands of dollars on hotels and airfare and all the things. And so you really want to treat your guests to an experience, and shorting on food or beverage, I think can be really harmful to an event. People will get overly intoxicated. And it's no fun when you're leaving an event. I know we've all been there. You leave in an event and you're like, where's the nearest fast food chain so I can get something because it didn't sustain me. So I think always making sure that your guests are taken care of in that way are important.
You know what's something that I haven't seen anyone do this on Maui, and so I can't speak to anything here that's relevant that I've seen, but on the topic of what you're just talking about, something I saw when I was in California that was really cool before I moved out here a couple of years ago was people would do their event, their wedding, whatever, and they would have the normal dinner, normal food, whatever, appetizers, all of the things. And then like right at the end of the event, they'd bring in like a food truck or like a bunch of pizza or like something where it was just like, okay, we're basically done. 30-minute warning. We're going to kick all you guys out. But here's a bunch of pizza. Eat so you're not drunk. Go home. And then like they just already planned for that. And I was like, this is so cool. So,
We actually do that a lot here. And not necessarily bringing in another vendor, but um, your caterer can do late night appetizers. We do some of our most popular like sliders with fries, Hawaiian pizza bites, veggie fried noodles and Chinese to go boxes. Some people will even, I've had a couple events where they bring in monogrammed boxes and we pack a little something for guests to take home with them. So it actually is a thing here. Um, and typically whoever is the caterer just handles something like that. But I think that's another great way to just make sure that your guests aren't leaving hungry. And especially after a night of drinking, I think that it's a great way to help people sober up a little bit too. Because safety is really one of our top priorities, whether it be transportation or making sure that people eat enough and don't drink too much.
yeah, yeah. And it makes for a better next day, especially on a place like this where you're supposed to be at breakfast the next morning.
Absolutely.
um, yeah. So just to kind of stay on that thing of what should people never do, what is like the craziest thing that you've seen at an event where you're like, just what's the one story of something going like terribly wrong or something that you're like they should not have done? Like what's tell me the craziest thing.
I had a situation once where I had to call the police and close down an event because the best man got too intoxicated and had butted the father of the groom.
Oh,
Yeah, just, I think sometimes alcohol involved. I don't know what the beef was about. All I know is there was blood everywhere. And when something like that happens, you call in the police and the event got shut down. I think another thing that happens actually not often, but people do, is they bring in their own liquor. And here on Maui, if unless you're in a venue that serves liquor, you can hire your own bar service and you buy all your liquor and the bar service sets it up, services it. And the guests are drinking for free, pretty much. It's on the host. And so there's been many times where we catch guests bringing liquor in, and I think what they don't aren't aware of is that there's hefty fines that go along with that. And that gets passed down to me, which in turn gets passed down to the client. And so I would say it's a really bad idea to bring liquor into an event. Just enjoy the bar that's there. There's usually always something for somebody to drink. The bartenders will get creative. But I do think that that's one mistake that guests make, thinking that they can just bring their own stuff in.
yeah. I mean, and that's always a bummer. I'm sure if you have to pass that fine on, it's always just like, like I'm sure
Yeah,
that that's not something fun for you to do. So that's definitely a bummer.
not at all. I mean, I had it
Yeah.
recently happen where we told the same person like three times, finally confiscated the bottle. He got aggressive, and once again, we had to shut down the event because of one human that wasn't following the rules. Never fun to do. My least favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that is a bummer. So to totally flip the story here, what is the most unique or cool thing that you've seen in a wedding or event? And because I know that you do catering, and I feel like this is going to go a catering direction, let's do like something catering specific. Like, what's the really most cool food thing? Like, cool something cocktail wise or something like that. And then what's the most just general thing that you've seen where you're like, that was awesome?
Um, we just recently had an event where they did sand art, and I had never seen that. But there's actually a sand art designer, like when you go into the hotels and you see these beautiful sculptures, but they had a welcome sign that was made out of sand and that actually can be casted and shipped back to you. And no, it's not sand off the local beach. It's sand that is purchased. So
Really?
you're not taking anything off of Maui. It's a purchase product that they mold and create. And it's a really cool, I think, memory, and it's a really cool thing to have at your wedding. I also love caricatures. So there is a couple people on Maui now that are doing caricatures at weddings, and they're not just doing the bride and groom, they're capturing photos of guests and they're popping out in 20 minutes like a photo of the guest that's a caricature. And those are some really cool, fun things to do at weddings to kind of they make great party favors for your guest, the caricatures. And I think everybody gets really excited to see what the artist comes up with.
So, do you guys in your catering side, do you guys do cocktails as well as food, or is it just primarily
We
food?
don't offer bar service, so we're
Okay.
strictly a catering company.
So, what is the coolest, like most extravagant thing you've seen on the catering side?
I mean, I love when we do seafood displays. You know, you could do oysters and lobster tails and crab claws and shrimp and scallops and ahi. So, seafood displays are really great. We do an amazing charcuterie that we put in a canoe, an 8-foot canoe, that's layered with meats and cheeses and fruits and nuts, and that's really cool. We once had, rather than a cake for cutting, we did a pizza for cutting. So we had a little pizza on top of our cake stand, little mini pizza bites around, and the guests, the bride and groom cut a pizza rather than a cake.
It's cool.
Yeah,
That's super
very
cool. I
different.
love the
And that's,
canoe
I
thing.
always, I think it's important to tell clients too, people talk about tradition, and one of the first things that clients usually say in a planning process is like, what's traditional? And I feel like in today's day and age, there still are those traditions, but most couples are paying for their own wedding these days. And so I like to tell them to feel free to do what makes them happy, what brings joy to their day, because it is about the guests, but it's about them as well, and they should enjoy every aspect of it too.
Yeah. So, I love the canoe thing. That's awesome. I want to find pictures of that because that just sounds so
I will
cool.
send you some.
So, other than putting sliced meat in a canoe, what is like the thing that makes you guys super unique um, as an event planner?
So we are a husband and wife team. So I do all the event planning and office end. My husband is the chef. He has a chef team that supports him, and I have a planning and service team that supports me. Um, I think what's unique about our business is that we are striving to be the bosses that we always wanted. We treat our staff like their family. We celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and graduations. We start our events with big hugs and aloha, and we end the nights with I love you and thank you and hugs. And we have always wanted to create an environment that it's a place where our employees can be. They can leave their stuff at the door and just have a great event, um, and enjoy themselves and pick up their stuff, their baggage when they leave. I think it's really important that when you're serving clients on one of the most important days of their lives, um, that your head is in the game and you're thinking about we're there to be there for love. And so we need to create that environment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That is really cool. I know that that's always makes such a difference. You can tell businesses that take care of their employees versus businesses that don't, just in how the employees deal with their customers. Like
Agreed.
such it just trickles down, and that's such a true thing. That's super cool that you guys take that approach. So, with someone that is just getting ready to start planning their wedding or their event, what is some advice that you would give to that person?
I would say your best avenue to go is to first hire your planner. And especially if you're working on a budget, I think what happens a lot of times is there's so much information via the internet that people get online, they start doing their research, and they go ahead and hire a vendor without really knowing what all the costs are involved. And so I really encourage people to reach out to a planner first, tell them all your bells and whistles and dreams and hopes, get an estimate so that you can see what the overall picture looks like, so that if you have money, that money to go for it, or we need to make decisions on budget, your planner can help you guide in that direction. Because in every area of an event there are vendors, low, medium, and high price range. And so that's your planner's job, is to really help guide you so you can stay within the budget. And they also have great recommendations on how to do that, to get creative, timing, all of those things. And I've seen too many times where people go ahead and hire vendors, the planner becomes like the third or fourth piece, and they've overspent because their timing was incorrect, or they have to spend more because the timing was incorrect, or they wish they would have hired a vendor that was less expensive because now the budget is blown up. So I think really starting with a planner is so important. And I know in today's day and age where information is all at our disposal, it is important to find somebody local that can help you with those details.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I hear that a lot. Is almost every person that I've asked this question to, the first thing they say is hire a planner. Every single time. That's like, I was just thinking about that. I was like, this should just be the name of this podcast, is hire a planner, because everyone says the same thing. So I can validate that. What is your current availability if people were getting ready to plan an event?
I'd say for a planner, you want to start, at least a year out, even maybe 18 months out, starting to do your research, but definitely a year out, you want to start securing. There are vendors that, do only one event, like your planner, your photo, your video team, your florist. And then there are planners, or there are vendors that can do multiple events. I think it's important to start booking as soon as you can so you can get the vendors that you'd like.
Yeah.
At that same time, I have planned weddings for, in 6 weeks, for those people who are making a last minute decision for whatever reason. That can also be done. You just got to be ready to make decisions.
Yeah. So talking about all the logistics and figuring out the vendors and all of the things with that, when you approach an event, do you have a preferred vendor list, and is there like, do you require that couples use those people, or are you pretty open to it?
So I do have a preferred vendor list. So one of the first things that if you book with us, once we receive contract and retainer, you will get our vendor guide. I am happy to work with anybody, so I do not limit you to that list. But of course, there is a reason that I have that list. I've been in this business for 20 years on Maui. Um, I know the vendors that are tried and true, the ones that are going to show up, the ones that are going to do an amazing job, and then I know the other options. So I think I am happy to work with whoever you want to work with, but I will always kind of turn you over to my vendor guide when you're looking for vendors.
Yeah. So when an event is taking place, do you have a day of person that is a day of planner, or are you the person that manages that? Who's the general point of contact?
So I have an associate by the name of Alana, and she
Mm-hmm.
typically runs my rehearsals. And then on the day of, she arrives for what we call the set. So she receives the rentals. I am usually there by 11, 12 in the afternoon, which most venues, for reference, you can't get on till 10 a.m. here. So she usually is receiving the rentals, but then I'm there prior to the clients arriving, prior to guests arriving, prior to the majority of the vendors arriving. So I kind of come in when linens are being placed, decor is going on, and all of those decisions are happening.
Nice. So there's multiple people helping out. that
Multiple
make sure that
people. I have a
everything's
team
smooth and it's
typically of
not
2 to 3 for events. So depending on your size, you'll definitely have 2 or 3 people helping the planning process.
what is the average size of events that you do?
Right now, we're seeing kind of 40 to 60. Post COVID, we were seeing 100 plus, but they've definitely scaled down a little bit. I would say the average right now is about 40 to 60 people.
Yeah. And what is the deposit amount and cancellation policy for your services?
So we take a 10% retainer of our estimate and a signed contract, and that locks in the date in our services. Then, as you're booking vendors, you would make other retainers to those vendors. Cancellation fee once you pay the retainer and we start working, that retainer is actually to retain us. So if there were to be a cancellation, we would deduct any time already incurred, any expenses already occurred from the retainer. And a lot of times, because we're already working, there is no refund on that.
So when you were going through an event, I know we talked about some of the cool things that have happened, some of the things that have gone poorly, and we've talked about how you have a preferred vendor list. What do you do to make sure that there's a smooth experience from start to finish? I know that probably starting with your vendor list is a big point and having people on site, but what are some things that you do maybe differently or special to make sure that everything goes well?
I think just for us, and my planning team, the team that's there overseeing the day, it's really about the details. And, we spend sometimes a year and a half planning with clients. So we have a lot of notes to oversee. And I think just following those notes and making sure that every point is hit and that we're staying a part of the timeline. Timing is very important to me because when you're dealing with so many vendors and paying people hourly, it's really important as a team that we stay on point and we stay on time. Because one vendor not following that guideline can affect 4 or 5 other vendors. So for me, timeliness is really, really important. And making sure that my team knows to stay on that timing as well, and making sure that we're communicating with vendors about what's next and are we ready, and
Yeah.
making sure everybody's on point with the schedule. So I think
Yeah.
for us, we really do take the timeline seriously and we do follow it precisely on your day, to make sure that the flow happens appropriately.
Yeah. So what got you into doing planning specifically?
Great question. 2008, we had the economy crash, and I think we were all kind of just trying to stay afloat. And so I started planning for free. Clients would come and looking for catering, and I just sort of took on this role of being like, yeah, I can help you with other things. At that time, a lot of the venues did not require planners, so it wasn't a necessary thing. But I think clients enjoyed having somebody oversee their day. So I just kind of started doing it for free for clients. And then about a year of that, I had somebody say to me, "You're really good at this. You should be charging." And so, oops. And so I started charging. And here we are today.
Great. That's an interesting kind of start. And it's interesting that you started out as free and then you were like, well, I guess, we'll make this a whole business. Um,
Absolutely.
so the last question I have for you, what do you enjoy most about the industry, the events, getting to do what you do, take it any direction you want? What do you enjoy most about anything to do with
So
this?
many things. Number one, we're surrounded by love on a daily basis. My husband and I talk a lot about this because we think that it really is a huge strength to our marriage because we get to see love every day and it reminds us it's like reliving our wedding day. And so I don't think we sweat the small stuff because we remind ourselves what type of business that we're in and how important a wedding day is. Um, the second thing I love is that no two events are alike. Um, Clients are different, vendors are different, food is different. So the fact that I'm not doing the same thing day in and day out, details are always different. It's always a little bit of a challenge and it's fun. And lastly, I get to work on some of the most amazing properties in the world. Most of our properties, I'm looking at the beach, I'm hearing the ocean. I mean, what a better life,
Yeah.
There and there's so many blessings about being a part of somebody's one of the four most important days of their life. And I think as we bless others, that comes around tenfold to our family.
Totally agree. And I also really resonate with the locations that we get to work in. Are every time I finish setting up and I sit down and I'm just like staring at the sunset and I'm like,
Yep.
this is just silly. Like this is ridiculous. Like this is
Yep.
amazing. You
Or when
know?
it's well season and you're watching whales jump, it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
and you watch the faces of guests who are just mesmerized by it. And I
Yeah.
think the one thing that Maui does is it reminds us to never take a day for granted,
Yeah.
because every
Absolutely.
sunset, every well, everything is so different. And to always honor and love the fact that you get to do this.
Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate you coming. I so appreciate the positive just energy at the towards the end of this and how much you appreciate it. It's really like infectious. So thank you so much for talking about it. Thank you. Um, aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.